This is Kellie Syfan with Clove Hitch Behavior. You're listening to Next Door Radio on nextdoorradio.com or the Next Door Radio app. I'm coming to you from Clove Hitch Behavior, and I'm so excited to host Behavior 911 as I do every Friday morning in the 10 o'clock hour. Now, we are about to get into December, so I want to start with a little bit of a situation story and then talk about some behaviors that we often see this time of year. So let's imagine that we are going to get onto an airplane, which is something a lot of us do this time of year. So let's say we call for a taxi and we get the taxi scheduled, and for whatever reason that falls through. But don't worry, we've got plenty of time. We're able to get an Uber, make it to the airport. We get to the airport. We know exactly where we're going to be flying out of because we've always flown with this airline, but their gate is moved. So that's a little bit different, but again, we got plenty of time. We're going to make it no problem. We see that the line in security is a little bit longer than we expected. Again, plenty of time, make it through, but it's just a little longer than we wanted, not quite exactly what we planned. Are we going to have time to get food? We get to the other side, we are. We're able to get our snacks. We make it through, and our gate's just been changed. Okay, still, we're doing fine. We get our food, we go to the new gate. We thought we were going to be boarding in, say, the first group, but we're actually going to be boarding in the fourth group. We get on, we expect to be at the front of the plane. We're actually at the middle, but we still get that aisle seat. You can notice here, everything is working out. But there's been a lot of changes. There's been a lot of expectations that we had for this that maybe are not exactly as they are. And if we went and told somebody the story later, we could focus in on all those changes. Holy smokes, thought I was going to get a taxi, but then I needed an Uber and I thought that the gate was going to be over here and now it's over there and you should have seen the line. Or we could tell the same story and be just as truthful to say everything worked out. It was, you know, different than I expected, but everything worked out. And it's interesting when we think about either situation, or rather the same situation in both ways, our energy coming from it might be a little bit different. So, from that first one, holy smokes, you should have seen all the changes. That could be an exhausting day. From the second, perhaps we're not as exhausted. Perhaps we're just thankful we made it there. Airlines can be tough. Now, it takes a lot of skill to do that second one, to have all of these changes come through, to have all these expectations fall a little to the wayside, even if everything worked out in the end. So let's think about that with kids. We've got the holidays coming up. We've got all sorts of different things that are happening. Maybe we're visiting people. Maybe we're having some time off school. Maybe our schedule's a little different than usual. All good things may be happening, but all of these things are changes. All of these things are transitions. All of these things are different than our usual day to day expectations. And if we don't have the skills to go, oh, it's still working out, it's okay, it's just different. In fact, it might be better than usual, it's just different, then we're going to fall into that exhaustion place, that overwhelm place, that I can't handle all of this sort of place. And many of us have seen that in kids. You know, we go to Disneyland and things should be amazing, but it's so different than usual. Our schedule is so different that we're having meltdowns at the happiest place on earth. What on earth is happening? Same thing as what happened to you perhaps in that airport where everything's working out. It's just different. We don't have the capacity to tolerate those differences at this point. And what we can do when we think about this is go, okay, first of all, this is, although it may seem completely blown up and out of nowhere, this is a pretty natural reaction. When there's lots of changes in life and our expectations aren't met, even if things are better than they are normally, that change will still throw us off. And that's very, very normal for humans. We've talked on Behavior 911 about extinction before, that when things change, that I'm going to fight to get it back the way it was. Even when things change for the better, I may fight to get it back to the way that it was. I will fight for that comfort. And frontal lobe, Kellie, may not be the one that's fighting. It may be a deeper part of me that needs that that similarity, that sameness, that expectation to remain. So know that this is a very, very natural thing to happen. And it's not always something where it's like, man, why is so and so messing up the whole trip? They're meaning to mess this all up or what have you. It could be a very deep perhaps misunderstood by the person or child themselves, need to get to a place that's predictable. That can be so, so tough this time of year when there's so many changes. So let's talk about a few things that you can do. Whatever parts we can keep of our usual routine can be really helpful to keep. Perhaps we still get up at a similar time. Perhaps meals are still at similar times. Perhaps we bring the materials in order to have a same sort of bedtime routine. Maybe we bring one bath toy, or we make sure we have our special blanket for good night time. There's all sorts of different things that we can consider to try to keep a little bit of our schedule and a little bit of our routine the same. Another thing we can consider is talking about all the different ways it can be okay, just different. So thinking about that, the example of going to the airport, if I ahead of time was sitting down and going, okay, I'm expecting to take a taxi, I could also take an Uber, I could also take a Lyft, I could also ask a friend. Yeah, that's different ways that could go. Those would all be different, but they'd be okay. And once I get there, if there's a long line or a short line, I'm going to get through security. And after that, if I have time to grab a snack, fantastic, but I'm gonna pack one just in case I don't, so I could eat my packed snack or I could buy one. Those are okay. They're just different. If I'm going through ahead of time and talking in my head or talking with somebody else about all the different ways that it can work out differently, that can help us be prepared for those different changes that can happen. Do the same with kids. Yeah, we're expecting to, drive to grandma's and go to the park. Well, if we don't go to the park, where else could we go? Maybe it's a museum. Maybe it's a different park than we expected. Talking about all the different things that could change and having that mentality of it's okay, it's just different can help us get prepared and have our mind in a place where we are almost expecting change rather than expecting things to stay the same. And that means when things do change, we're already in a place of, yeah, this is what I expected. This is exactly what should happen. Now, again, we're talking very much at the front of the brain right now and all the parts that we can control. Still, maybe a part of us a little bit deeper that really craves that same thing. No matter how much better this version is, we get to see family, we get to go to Disneyland, no matter what. We still might have that agitation in us, and we still might have some big meltdowns while we're going through these changes. So, considering those moments, again, we know that this is normal. This is not somebody who's just trying to mess things up. Going through and knowing that when we're in that meltdown state, if we can reduce our sensory input, have slightly less bright lights, have things be a little bit quieter, whatever we can do to just bring to a calm place so that we ourselves can come back down. Sometimes it can be helpful again to have some of those things that would be familiar or used at home. So if you have a like a book that you read when it's time for us to settle down, having that with you can be incredibly helpful. Something to consider too is what it's like to have people within your own home. Now, I know, and I'm sure many adults that I'm speaking to right now know that they love having family over, and it's exhausting. So, why is it exhausting? Again, our usual expectations. When I come out, there's this many people in the house. This bathroom will be available. There will be nobody sitting at the kitchen table when I get up early to make coffee. All those little things, even though we're excited to be around these people that we love, are a little bit different. And we as adults have had all of this time to gain tolerance toward these changes, and kids may not have that. So, again, even though it may be better, they may be having a great time, it still may be very, very tough. Now, if you're going through this and you want to chat about it some more, you can always call me up at Clove Hitch Behavior. You can call me at 919-579-6192 or text that same number. You can catch me at chbehavior.com. Always happy to do 30 minutes just to talk things over. Holidays are hard, and I'm here to help however I can. Now, the last thing that I want to leave you with is again, know that this is totally, totally normal. You do not have a bad kid. I'm going to say that again. You do not have a bad kid, whether they are unable to be grateful when they get a gift they weren't expecting, whether they suddenly lose their manners when they reach that point of too many changes and they're being a little less kind than we would hope, Whether they are having an absolute meltdown in the middle of the store, you do not have a bad kid. You got a kiddo that's having a tough time during a time of year that can be really tough, during a time with many changes, and they will grow to have more skills in the future. And I know it's tough on you too. Let's not sit here and act like this is something that's super easy to sit through. Your expectations are now changing. You had this plan for what your holiday would look like, and now your kiddo's behaving differently than you would expect. So give yourself some grace. You're going to make it through, and it's going to be beautiful memories in the end. Thank you so much for joining me at Behavior 911 on Nextdoor Radio, nextdoorradio.com, and the Nextdoor Radio app. You can find me here every Friday in the 10 o'clock hour. I'll see you next week.